Hi guys, welcome back to Iron Griffin Studio. So this week I was invited to take part in a kind of terrain builder community challenge thing by Encounter Terrain, who I will link in the description. The idea was that we had to make something that was defense based and on a 10 by 10 centimeter square, which is really small. It's really small, there's not a lot you can do with that. But I'll give it a go. I think I'm going to go with something kind of like a wilderness based fantasy thing rather than anything modern. And probably put some kind of character on it just to give it a bit of character. But yeah, so we'll see what we can come up with, and yeah, let's get cracking. Alright, so I started with a 10 by 10 centimeter square of Foamex, which is expanded PVC for the base, and then I added a piece of 2 centimeter thick XPS foam to the top, and I beveled one side down so that it kind of sloped to the ground, and then I left 3 sides kind of sheer, if you like, and I put some joint filler over the roughness just to kind of smooth it out. I added some rock face to the sides, which I made from a previous video, which I can link in the top corner for you. Just a matter of adding that to the edges that I want to be kind of rocky, and I'm going to leave that sloping side as kind of a grassy incline, if you like. Just using a hot glue gun just for the speed, really, to secure these. You could use something like no nails, I think that would probably work. Just the trouble with foam, you know, sticking anything to foam, is that foam is non-porous and tends to not take certain glues very well. Any glue that requires air to dry normally is a little bit, well, it has problems with XPS foam. But there you go, that's all the rock face done, and now I just need to fill in the gaps with some joint filler. And I'm obviously using some kind of plastic spatula tool for this, but you know, you can use your fingers or whatever you have to hand. I think on some of the finer bits where I had to really get the joint filler into the small gaps, I think I used a toothpick or just a piece of coffee stirrer or something, but whatever it takes just to get it in the gaps there, squeeze it in. Because obviously you're looking for a nice smooth blend in natural terrain, so a smooth blend between the rock and the grass. Right, so I wanted to put some defensive stakes in the highest point of this build, so I dug some plastic ones out of an old bits box there from Warhammer Bretonian's sprue, and I just started pushing them into the foam after I sharpened the bottoms off. If you don't have these, obviously you can just use cocktail sticks or pieces of dowel or something, and you know, normal kind of chain to go between them. No harm in that, but I had these to hand and I wanted to get them used out of my plastic bits box. Alright, now with that done, we can't have all this texture of the joint filler showing through, so I really wanted to texture the entire piece pretty much with some basing sand, just the normal sand, kind of fine gravel that I would use to base most of my models with. I went around the entire thing, all over the top and around the sides, but not on the rocky surface, just on the edges at the bottom there, and then just added the basing sand in the usual way, carefully. Missed a massive piece on the top there, but I managed to fill that in later on, and then I undercoated it with black. Now here I'm just adding some game colour earth, I think it's called, and just, yeah, put it on pretty liberally, I use a wet brush just to really kind of help move this paint around. Again, avoid the rocky surface. We're going to do that in a grey, and just get around all the top and around the bottom edges, around the sides. And now moving on to the rock face, we're just going to do that in a medium grey. And it's probably worth bearing in mind that plaster of Paris really does soak up some paint, so you might need to do maybe 2 light coats over this rock face bit. Yeah, nothing much you can do about that. Alright, now even though the top is nice and textured, it doesn't look very textured. It's a bit flat at the moment. So we're going to take some Xanadu dust and then just really dry brush quite lightly over the top, but really pick out all that texture you put on there. And it's going to go all around the sides as well, again avoiding the rock face because we're going to use a wash on that. Alright, now I took this opportunity here to paint the wooden stakes going into the ground. I wanted to use a different brown to that earth colour, so I just went with a bit of a darker brown just to give some contrast so it didn't blend in too easily. And now it's time for the wash. Now really you want to keep this only on the rock face areas, the greys that you've done. It doesn't really matter too much if you go over the edges because you can kind of disguise that with flock in the later stages, but for the moment, being as careful as I can with a massive brush, I'm just going to like slightly dab on this wash colour, and it's my usual brown black mixture of wash, and it goes over all of the rock face. And then once that's dry, we're going to try and pick out the very tops of the rock face again with just some kind of like a medium grey or a light grey, just to really pick out those top areas, just to take away the griminess and really bring out that texture again. Alright, let's get some green on this thing. So I'm going to put some clump foliage down. I'm just using some woodland scenics clump foliage at this point. Just dip it in some tacky glue and then glue it to the areas where you want a bit of ground cover. You don't want to overdo it with this stuff. It does kind of take over a small base like this, so just go kind of easy with it. I did use a little bit of this clump foliage to cover a few imperfections in the floor, but there you go, looking pretty good so far. And next it's time for some flock. So you'll notice I'm using a small tray here just because I want to gather the excess flock as it comes off so as not to waste any. I'm going to add some PVA glue to the whole, well, more or less the whole thing, and then just apply flock as usual. I'm going to leave a few patches of dirt showing through. I don't want the entire ground to be too grassy and too lush. I want it to look kind of a little bit, worn. Now it's always a good idea to use a few different colours of flock on terrain pieces like this, so I'm going to use a very lush green flock at first, just in some small patches. Don't want to overdo it with this, and just fill in a few bits here and there before I move on to the next colour. Now the next kind of static grass I'm going to use, I think it's called burnt grass or dry grass or something, and it's kind of a bit duller and a bit more brown in it. I think it looks a little bit more natural for these kind of wilderness style pieces. So I'm just going to fill in the rest of this PVA with this one. I actually also add some flowers to one side here, but you'll see that at the end. Now you'll notice I also added some clump foliage to the branches of the tree, and then I wanted to add some small arrows to the ground, so I poked some holes in the foam and I added a few small little plastic arrows from different various sprues I had. I just had them poking out of the ground, and then I painted them up afterwards once they'd dried. And then to finish off this piece I painted up a little wood elf, added him, but he's detachable so I can just use the terrain as is. All done. I'm pretty happy with it. The elf on top, the little guy, who is a shadow warrior, I think, high elf shadow warrior. I painted him up like a wood elf kind of thing, and he's detachable so that I can just use the terrain as is. But that's pretty much what I envisioned in my head when I started this project, and it's kind of worked out pretty well. Yeah, it was an interesting build. It allowed me to sort of do a few things that I wouldn't necessarily make otherwise, and I got to do a few different techniques there and use a lot of plastic bits that were sat in my little bits box on the shelf there. Yeah, so it was an interesting build, and I look forward to the next one. And I look forward to seeing what everybody else has come up with too, because like it's such a creative style, you know, just to kind of say it's a defense-based thing. Like that's it. That's vague. It's really vague. You can make anything with that. So I'm really looking forward to what the rest of the hobbyists in the challenge have come up with. And well, I suppose we'll find out who wins. Yeah, so that's all for this video. Let me know if you enjoyed it, and be sure to like, comment and subscribe and everything else like that, and I will get back to you very soon with another video. That's all for now. Thanks for watching, and happy crafting.